Si Jésus pas là, là nous t'avons là, alléluia. Si Jésus pas là, côté.
聞こえますか？マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイクチェック、マイク
It's 2018. Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show. Time to wake up your mind. Time to be informed, engaged, and empowered. It's time for the Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Just want to call and say what's up.
Oh, it's you.
Hey, bro.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's coming to you?
Thank you very much.
We've got news from Essex County, New Jersey, and beyond.
In obscene terms, he said,
accountability starts here.
Now give me a beat. I'm concerned because we haven't elected people who, to me, have the acumen to begin to try to figure it out.
It's the Eric Dawson Radio Show on RTH 2000.
Uh-oh.
I felt like I was in a court, like up against that thing. Okay.
You're switching?
Yeah, is that okay?
No.
Okay, I know I switched late.
Yeah, it's like musical chairs.
Wait, is this the stupid mic? Okay.
No.
I did a stupid switch.
No.
Okay.
Are you good?
No, my life's like not.
Your life's not
now.
working out right now?
No, not at the moment.
Let's see.
I did a stupid switch. Maybe I should go to this one. Okay. We're good.
All right,
We're
so
good.
we're putting you on 4 now?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm on 4. Good
Listen.
morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Community Talk Radio.
Man, it freaked me out. I'm like, what's she jump for? Yeah, welcome to 95.1 FM, the Eric Dawson Radio Show, with your hosts, Jennifer Charles and me.
Why do
Eric
you always
Dawson.
say my full government? Guys, please don't call
Your
me
full
that.
government?
Yes.
What you want me? Oh, Zengen?
Thank you.
I'm
That's
sorry.
what everyone calls me.
All right, so Zengen.
Thank
And
you,
you know what?
Eric
I
Dawson.
will not do that again.
Thank you.
You know, people
Gosh.
ask me all the time, when you introduce yourself to folks, how do you introduce yourself? Like formally? Do you say
What's
Do you say
formal?
Jennifer? Do you say, hi, my name is Jennifer?
Yeah, typically I say Jennifer. I don't really. No, well, it depends on the setting.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the setting. I never say Jennifer Charles though.
You don't?
No,
I always say Eric Dawson.
I can tell. It's the Eric Dawson radio show.
Well, no. But when I introduce myself to and people are taken aback by it. They say, somebody will say, "Hi, my name is John." I say, "My name is Eric Dawson." And it's always this kind of thing. But the reason
They'll
I
remember.
do it, well, they remember it, but I do it because I always represent more than me.
Okay.
I represent my family.
Right.
And it reminds me that I represent my family, in everything that I do. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not just Eric. I am a part of something bigger than me, which is what hedges me in and keeps me focused.
Right.
So
you are Eric Dawson.
I am Eric Dawson. And then in the community that I grew up in, people then connected. They say, "Oh, Preston Dawson's grandson, or Emma Dawson's grandson," or for those who remember my dad being Carl Dawson before he changed his name to Sharif, they say, "Oh, that's Sharif's son." And so all of that, because everything that I do, I'm able to do because I stand on their shoulders.
Right.
And it always reminds me of that. But anyway, so we are in the Eric and Zen show.
We are. Hold on. Are we okay? We're still up, guys, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going on? What are you doing to me this morning?
Darren. What am I doing? I'm all over the place. Okay.
Darren.
No, because Darren put Jennifer Charles as your name, right? Darren, mind your business, Darren. Okay. Now you're gonna write it.
Wow.
I don't need people coming to find me.
Is that what it's about?
Yes, that's staying low.
Is that what it's about? Yo, speaking of find me, and I gotta mention it because it is news. Did you hear about the guy who killed his wife in Montclair?
No, what? No.
Oh,
when
this
did
was
happen?
This is a couple weeks ago, I believe, right? That he killed his wife. Don't know the circumstances under which he killed his wife. The guy's name is James. I don't remember his last name. But lived on, I believe it was Mountain Avenue. A black guy. Now, I believe of African descent.
Okay. And
shot his wife dead in front of their daughter. Young child. And then he fled. And they were looking for him for a couple weeks, I guess, maybe a week and a half. So it might have happened 2 weeks ago. Anyway, they found him trying to get into Cuba. So escaped. He left the state, left the country, went to Mexico, and then was leaving Mexico and trying to get through customs in Cuba to go into Cuba. And they caught him. They have him now in Essex County Jail, is my understanding.
Wow.
And it's very tragic because now the young daughter is going to grow up without a mother and a father, for all intents and purposes.
I'm reading he was an attorney.
Yeah. Oh, he was very successful, my understanding.
And then Diane said he was Nicki Minaj's brother's attorney.
Yes.
I guess the one that went to prison.
That's absolutely correct.
Child, whatever.
That's
child
absolutely
molestation. That is very scary because Montclair is very close to home. And that's in the last couple of years that has happened more than once where a person, at least the child, is alive.
In Montclair?
Not in Montclair, but in Essex County. Well, in this area. A couple of years ago, someone that I knew actually killed his wife and the child.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Actually, his father owns a club in the area, or owned a club in the area, and he killed.
Why can't I hear you?
You can't hear me?
Oh,
can you guys hear me?
Now
Okay.
I can.
Yeah. So, I guess I'm just grateful that he didn't turn the gun on the child, because that happens. They kill where someone will kill the whole family and then kill themselves.
Well, there was another incident a few years ago in Montclair where the guy went to, I believe it was the YMCA, and killed the girlfriend or wife, his child's mother. I look. My thing is, if it gets to that point, just leave. You know what I mean? Just leave. Don't.
Well, I think mental health, obviously, in some of these situations, plays a huge role. I know in the situation that I was talking about, I always felt like something was a little shaky, I guess, like with the person, with him. So I think that what ends up happening is when we when we own no, actually, Diane, I'm not talking about 80 out. I'm actually talking about Bogies around the corner.
That's not far from where we
Yeah,
are. It's
we could just throw a rock. The owner, well, I think he's.
Oh yes,
son.
Rufus's son.
Ruben.
I mean Ruben's son. I'm thinking Rufus.
He killed himself. He killed his wife, and he killed their son.
That's absolutely correct.
So, and I knew them because I used to work there.
That's right.
So,
that was a big tragedy. Yeah.
So for me, and I do feel like mental health played a huge role in that.
Well, I think that at some point people snap, right? There is a disconnect that takes place, and if we define it as mental illness, then that's what it is. But I do think there is a departure that we have from humanity and reality, and I'm not talking about hunting, right? Hunting for food or for folks who hunt for game. That's something different. But you'll see some people who are just cruel to animals. Like, I blocked them on my Facebook page, but I'm sure on your feed occasionally you'll see where folks are setting dogs on fire. They're doing all.
Eric, what kind of page you got?
No. Well, it's my regular page, but
who's your friend?
No. These people, trust me, these people are not my friend. But these things kind of seep through the algorithms of Facebook, and they make their way into just the general feed as you're scrolling through it. And those folks, there's a departure because I think that we're all born with a certain amount of humanity, right? That makes us, I don't want to say normal. I don't know what the term is I'm looking for, but when you can bring yourself to you find enjoyment, there's something wrong.
Right.
When you go to take a knife or a gun or some other object to kill one of the creator's creatures, I think there's a departure. And again, if we want to call it mental illness,
I would call it that.
But then it's interesting, right? Because when we talk about it, let's. And I didn't even plan to go down this road. And my mom often asks me, because she listens to the show, she goes, "Eric, how do you pick your topics?" I'm like, Mom, I sit down and it just some stuff, because you listen to news and life happens, you just begin to talk, and then stuff happens. So let's talk about the guy who killed a dozen people in the bar. Right. So when we talk about mental illness, and I saw somebody post, well, why whenever it's a mass shooting and it's a white person, they call it mental illness? Well, sometimes it is, right?
No, I do believe that was.
And so now when we talk about this departure, when you take and you military, or every time they train to do it, there's a slight departure.
Right.
A slight departure. And so this guy, who was a Marine, right? I believe he was stationed in Afghanistan at some point. You have to now look and say, well, given the idea of there being a departure whenever you are summoned or, by somebody, or you do it yourself to kill, that there's a departure. And so Ruben's son, that gentleman, James in Montclair, it's all tragic in the end. But I'm glad that they caught him so that he didn't get to harm himself, right? Or harm anybody else in the process. And now, hopefully justice will be done. But I can't help but think about his daughter. And you have to now look at the trauma that she's going to experience and live with, and how that's going to play out in her life.
Right.
All right. Let's take this call. Caller, go.
Hey, good morning, Eric, and the co-host. This is Minister Ellis.
Hey, Minister Ellis, can you get clearer on your phone? It's a little fuzzy.
Is that a little better?
Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, look, I can't watch the show and talk on my phone. I have a iPhone 1. I have the first iPhone.
Did they call it a 1 at the time?
I don't think so.
Did they actually call it the iPhone 1?
No. I'll just got some old bootleg phone, but it works. I can pick it up. I can say hello, and that's all I need.
Hey, there you go.
But, hello, guys, and I'm glad, gun violence is something that affects many people all over the country. And I always say anybody who pulls the trigger and kills somebody definitely has a mental problem. Now, I mean, it's no question. For someone to pull out a gun, I'm a victim of gun violence, shot multiple times, left for dead. Thank God I'm still alive. But the point I want to touch on is the families. A lot of people don't understand what the families go through. To get a knock on the door, to get a phone call, or sometimes, many scenes, and I've been advocating against gun violence for 26 years. Started back in 1993, advocating against gun violence. So I understand clearly how it affects our community and families. But we as a community have to understand how it affects our community and families. So, I always speak about the dangers of guns in the hands of irresponsible people, because people who are shooting and killing people with guns are irresponsible.
They are. But you know what? And I don't want to make this a race thing, but I do have to ask the question because it's so obvious. Out of all of the mass shootings that have taken place, I don't know how many of the mass shooters were non-white.
Well, here's the deal.
And the reason I'm asking that is this.
That last time was a DC sniper. That was how many years ago? Like 20 years now?
20. Oh, the guy who was in the back of the car and just like sniping people on the highway?
Yeah.
Right.
That's probably the only one that I could think of.
Right. And so I think that when you look at just statistics and you see that there is an overwhelming disparity, you have to ask the question, and somebody's got to be researching that. I don't know who. I haven't seen any data.
Here's the deal on that, Eric. When it comes to, and like I say, I've attended thousands of funerals and thousands of funerals where our people have killed our people. So to me, I don't like to put it in that kind of a sense where if we take one mass person and he shoots 12 people and then don't look at the one person or the 5 people in a week that killed 10 or 12 people, the point of it is these people are killing people.
Oh no, I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying, Minister Ellis, is this: that folks are looking into why you have such violence, say in urban communities, right? And then they attach it to poverty. They attach it to a lack of opportunities. They attach it to a host of other things. Right? That's absolutely right. And so the question is, what are you attaching the violence to when you say that it is an overwhelming? I mean, it's got to be 99% or so of the mass shootings are perpetrated by white folk.
Correct.
Right. And so
that's understandable. Why? The why is false. Is physical. A person pulls out a gun and shoot and kill you, they have a mental problem. That's the why.
I'm not saying that they don't have a mental problem. I guess what I'm asking is this: okay, no, I get that they have mental illness, but the mental illness does not bifurcate itself in a way that you have one group that suffers it and goes off into mass shootings, right? Because what I would say is this: there's a lot of mental illness in the Black community. right?
That's why
A tremendous.
kill people.
No. But what I'm asking is this. No. But I get it. But what I'm saying to you, Minister Ellis, is this. My cousin, for instance, a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago now, it was during the 2014 municipal election, was murdered on Irvin Turner Boulevard, right? And the person who shot him, was finally arrested and convicted. It shot a man, right? So an automatic weapon. But you don't see that.
Crazy. That's what they were.
But that's okay. But you don't see that person take that automatic weapon and go, say, into, and I'm not, certainly not suggesting that people start doing it, but you don't see them go into the movie theater and just start shooting up on Springfield Avenue, or go into the Home Depot and start. They're targeting individuals. And why not just go?
Thank God that our people aren't shooting us in mass numbers.
Right, but why? But I'm saying to you again, if we conclude that it's mental illness across the board, if you're going, you're killing somebody, why not? I'm just trying to figure out why not the mass shootings? Why the mass shootings at a probably greater than 99% rate amongst white folk?
Okay, so let's look at
and almost zero among everybody else.
So let's look at it this way. The mind. What people go through in the white community, what their issues are, is totally different what the issues are in the black community. And so some people handle or can't handle their stressor situation as well as others. The point of the matter is that whenever there's a gun involved, and that's what we have to focus on.
Okay, well, Minister, I'm going to jump in. I'm just going to jump in really quick because we're already diverting from, because at this point I kind of understand what Eric's saying. What I'm saying is I get that there are differences. I would like to, what Eric is saying is, why are your differences causing you to walk into a place and shoot 20 people?
Right. Why is your stressor?
Whatever your stress is, why is it causing you to do that?
Right. And then my stressor is causing me to shoot one person.
So why is it causing in the black community?
You can't answer a question with a question.
Hold it, I listen to you guys. Listen
Go.
to me now.
Go.
You're asking a question.
No, just go ahead. Just give your answer. Go ahead.
Okay, why in the black community, or let's take Chicago, for instance, perfect example, where only in the black community it gets to be 50 shootings and 90 killings in a weekend. Why? So when you look at that, you got to say the same thing that I'm trying to relay, is that the people who are out here shooting and killing people, it's mental. We don't have to wait for the white man or some doctor or great sociologist to label it. We common sensibly already know. Now, how do you solve that problem? That's the issue. How do you come up with a solution?
Sure, I think that and I think
the number of mass shootings.
Sure, I'm not, and I think that we should try to figure out a solution. What I'm asking again, though, Minister Ellis, is this: in the black community, if you're talking about Chicago, you talk about Newark, you're talking, the people who are being shot by folks they know, right? The people who are doing the shooting are shooting people they know.
And some of these mass shooters are shooting people they know.
No, they're not. They're not. They're going into They're bars. They're going into movie theaters. They're going. The guy in Atlantic.
Yoga place didn't know nobody. He just walked in the yoga place. The guy. All right. So let's do this here. Paducah, Jonesboro, Columbine. These people these are mass shootings. These people in the school, they knew the students.
Okay, so now
In Virginia, the Chinese guy went in there and killed up everybody. He knew people.
Okay, so now let's talk about Dylan Storm Roof, who walked in a church full of people that he didn't know and just started shooting.
Why did he
do that?
Let's talk about the guy in Las Vegas who was who was in the hotel room, who just rained down bullets. I mean,
or the guy in San Diego this who to a random bar and just started.
Okay, so now let's look at it. So every case is going to be different. So we know that. See, again, when you're dealing with gun violence, the first thing that they want to figure out was who was the shooter. All right. Now, what caused him to shoot? What triggered him to pull the trigger? So it's the same thing, okay? I remember in the South Ward. Listen to me now, clearly.
Real quick, we got another caller coming in. Go ahead.
I remember in the South Ward doing a memorial and prayer vigil where one cat shot 13 people off of Bergen Street a couple of years ago.
Who doesn't want to look at that?
Well, because that's not the issue we're talking about. We're talking about what's the psyche of the mass and why the mass. Why is the people don't feel safe in every city, basically where we live at? Where
before we let you,
a huge gun violence issue.
Before we let you go, Minister, what I would like to say is that one side of violence is not the other. We were asking specifically about. We know that. Violence in our community needs to be resolved as well. No one is saying great job in the Black community and there's something going on in the white mass shootings. What we were saying is, why do mass shootings happen, period?
Right.
What is the cause?
Call it, go.
Hey, Eric, it's Diane. I just wanted to point out something. This is a little different in the Black community. Black community, the killings are more over territory and control. I don't know why white people are doing mass shootings or why they feel as though that's the best way or anything like that. And I don't believe that every shooting has anything to do with a mental illness. Sometimes it's just people that's angry and they just are don't know how to control their anger.
Well, wouldn't that be
somebody white to call in and tell us why white people are shooting in masses, because they know their issues better than we do.
But when you say that if somebody gets to a point, so you call it anger management, right? And they have doctors for that, right? They have therapists for angering somebody, because the normal person, and I don't mean normal to demean somebody who may have a mental illness. I'm just trying to differentiate. So the average person or majority of the people, whatever term you want to use, they're able to control their anger. They get to a level, they don't reach the boiling point, and they're able to calm themselves back down. When you become so angry and it just continues to escalate and you lose control, I'm asking, at the point that you lose control, is that your inability to control your mental faculty, and thereby would we say that there's an illness? Because normally you should be able to be in control.
Absolutely. However, you also confusing the two things of self-control and mental illness. Mental illness is not something that you can control. Self-control or yelling at somebody and getting into an argument, that's you controlling yourself. That can elevate to you getting into road rage. That's you controlling yourself. That's not necessarily mental illness. And it can go all the way up to you getting into a fist fight with somebody or pulling out a gun. That's not mental illness. And that's self-control.
No. So I agree. So I'm saying if I got into an altercation in the street with somebody and it happened to escalate to fisticuffs, to me, that's one thing. And I think that that's even like not normal, right? But it does escalate to that. You get to that point. But then it goes beyond that, where somebody pushes the envelope further to take a life over a parking space, or to take a life because some guy looked at his girl sideways, or because he made a comment. I'm saying getting to that, or stepped on your shoe or sneaker or bumped you. I'm saying, like, in that moment, there's a break.
Absolutely.
Right. And I'm saying that in that moment, would we not classify that as the inability to control your mental faculty, and thereby...
Tons of people that are sitting in jail that went too far
Oh, no.
time.
I know. I don't say that you don't go to jail. No.
Self-control.
I'm not saying that you don't go to jail for it.
Okay, so what?
I'm simply saying. So I'm not saying that you're absolved of the crime, murder.
What? When we say that, okay, so what is really the difference between being mentally ill and not having self-control?
And Diane, hold on.
At what point does one venture off into the other?
Right.
Because in being around mentally ill people, what I've learned is that most mentally ill people don't have self-control. That's part of their mental illness.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Oh, hello, caller. Go ahead. I thought we had another call.
I thought we did too.
All right, maybe they'll call back.
So,
Diane, you still there?
Is Diane there? I don't know.
I'm still here.
Okay.
No, I'm saying, yeah. At what point do you choose to classify them differently? Because, like I said, I've worked in mental health. I've been around mentally ill people. That's what it's about. You talk to yourself. You hear things. You see things. You do things. You feel people are trying to do things to you. You react in ways that you're not. That people feel like you shouldn't. What's the difference?
Well, honestly, I can't answer that question because I'm not a mental health specialist. But from what I see, from my opinion, there has to be some type of repetitive type of behaviors that lead up to something that you're doing consistently to be more of a mental illness than something that just says, I'm snapping and this is what's happening.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one, Diane. I do feel like that moment that you snap is, to me, signs of a nervous breakdown or a mental.
Well, that's the question I'm asking. So we call it snapping, right? So somebody says, "Oh, that person snapped." What does that mean? That's what I'm saying. What does that mean? What did they snap from? Was there? And
Sanity.
I'm calling it a break.
I think it's from sanity.
A break from sanity.
Like for a split second.
Even if it's for a split.
Yeah,
exactly.
You broke from reality and sanity, and it caused you to do something unrealistic.
Then absolutely. Then that could actually be something that. But do you with being mentally ill?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
would.
With the lawyer. So if there's somebody who's a lawyer, you can call in and clarify it if you want to.
Or someone who has experience with mental illness or any of this stuff. Please call in.
And you can tell me that I'm wrong, but I believe that this is what it is. If I walk into the house and I see my wife in bed with a guy, right? And I become enraged in that moment and I react, right? That I believe they refer to as a crime of passion, right? It wasn't premeditated. In that moment, the rage in me just became uncontrollable given the circumstances that I was presented with. I was out of control in that moment and I reacted. Right. That's taken into consideration in a court of law. It is to manage those emotions, those things that are going on inside of me. Right? And in that time, that brief time, there was a snap. Right? And under normal circumstances, my air quotes, I would not have done that. Right? But because of the pressure of the moment, I reacted. And so whatever the pressures are, these individuals are experiencing, they reach an explosion point. And in that explosion point, they react.
Right.
And I'm just saying, and I'm not excusing it. I'm saying that folks should be punished. Dylan Roof is going to be put to death, and he should be. And this guy James is going to go to jail. Well, he's in jail. Other folks who are committing, the guy in some of them killed themselves. Right? These mass shooters kill themselves. A lot of them, and they should meet that fate. I'm not excusing that. I'm simply asking about the mental illness of it. Because, and again, I raised it because in a thread, somebody said, why is it that every time there is a mass shooting, are these white folks considered to be mentally ill?
Right.
And I'm saying,
I have an answer
maybe
to
they
that.
are. Yes, ma'am.
Because white people control the media. So they put the spin on how we view the news to be. So if they want to say that this is a mental illness and mass shooting because it's a white person, and with black people is black on black crime, that's because they phrase it that way. And
Right.
we take it and we run with
It's
it.
positioned.
No, and now I don't disagree with that. But my question is, instead of saying that they're not mentally ill on this side, maybe on the other side, instead of black on black crime, maybe we talk more about mental illness in our community too.
Because mental illness is not, and I hate to use these words, air quotes, as somebody else in the city said, it's not sexy to talk about.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to talk about the mayor in a second. I'm going to get on. There's some absurdity.
Talk about it because they don't acknowledge there's an issue. In many communities, black and brown communities, I can't think of many people that we might have said when I was younger had a mental illness. You might have talked about somebody in family that was put away in an institution, but you never talked about, they had a mental illness, or they were schizophrenic, or they were bipolar, or anything like that. We just didn't talk about it. So because we didn't talk about it, we didn't know how to address the situation. I was just watching, they have on Netflix, a documentary about a woman that was diagnosed to be schizophrenic. And it didn't come out until she was probably after she was married, then divorced. So she was probably in her 40s when it came out. So as a child, teenager in college, just, no signs of it, always bubbly, loving person. And then all of a sudden, something happened in her mind, I guess the divorce. And then she just started to do things that were not normal to her daughter. She left a note and said that she was going to talk to the governor. She lived in New Hampshire, left a note and said she was going to go talk to the governor. And her daughter woke up and she was gone. And then the next day she didn't come back. And then the daughter called. Her aunt was like, my mom is gone. We need to go look for her. Like, I don't know what's going on. Then she came back and she said that she was, that the Chinese mafia was after her. Then that was a whole another thing as to why she quit a job. Then they said she had been homeless for years and ended up in New York at the World Trade Center after 9/11 and was down there like the tourist person, like giving people information about where to volunteer and where to do this. And she ran into another health professional that said when he met her, he thought something was not quite right, but he didn't want to pry into her business to find out why she was homeless until, sometime later. And then the police picked her up and called the family. Is like, we can't hold her, but she's here. So people don't really know how to address it, how to talk about it, or what the signs of it are. Some people just say, that person's just loud and crazy and, and that's just our aunt and, that's just how she acts. But they don't really know how to look for the trigger points when things really happen.
Right. All right. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Hello, caller, go.
How you doing? I just wanted to share. This is Che. I think we're ducking the 500-pound elephant in the room. We've seen in this country by historical record 500 years of lynching. We know that there's black on black crime in every major urban center. We know that there are good-hearted black people. We know that there are good-hearted white people. But we know that this country still has a challenge of white male inferiority. So when that white male inferiority hits its pinnacle, the way that different communities, cultures, and subcultures within those communities handle crisis and the ability to cope with crisis, we see that result in action through unfortunate ways. Eric shared his story about a family member that had an unfortunate transition. I've had family members that have been victims of gun violence. And what I'm saying is, yes, there's shootings in the black community and in the white community through mass shootings, but we don't see the scale of black mass shootings because the way that the Afrocentric lineage has had the ability to cope, the way we've been resilient, there's a tremendous amount of resilience in our community to work through crisis. And when we see crisis in other communities, I think it's a reflection of how they've had to cope through societal challenges through generations. But that's my 2 cents. It might not be the right diagnosis, but we surely thank you, Eric and Jen. You both are doing a good.
I would like to say, and I'm standing on it. Who doesn't like what I'm going to say? Black on black crime, in my opinion, is propaganda. There's no such thing as black on black crime. There's crime. People kill in their communities, and communities are still segregated. So you kill people that are close to you and whom you know. So if I live in a neighborhood where there's 2 white people in my neighborhood and 30,000 black people, chances are I'm going to kill some black people if I choose to kill somebody. It's not because black people have it somehow ingrained in their brain to just kill other black people. It's you kill who's in front of you when you go to kill. Especially if you're killing somebody you know and your community is segregated. That's number one. And I feel like black on black crime is propaganda to kind of take attention away from the bigger issue, which is poverty, which is classism, which is a number of poor living conditions that cause people to kill over territory and money and things that other people may not feel as threatened because of and kill because of. If you're in a community where you don't have to worry about money as often, or where your next meal is coming from, or how you're going to pay your bills, you probably won't kill for those things. What I want to know is when you are not, because in the community that I live in, typically, not all the time, typically when murders and things happen, it's because of those, be over money, drugs, somebody did something to somebody, not all the time, but a lot of the time. I want to know what makes a person go into a ring and just start killing numbers of people, 10, 12, 20, 30 people. That's what's confusing to me. And I want to know why all the people, or a lot of the people that are doing it, look the same. I'm not saying that, and it's not to say that white people are inferior because it's happening. I personally want to know what exactly the stresses and the struggles are that causes a person to go into a movie theater and kill 20 people.
That's really where I am.
That's
right?
it.
It's nothing more than that. It's like, okay, so there's some stressors that are going on in those communities that are leading them to do that, and then how are those stressors being addressed? That's kind of really where I was trying to get to in this. But it's a conversation that has to be had. It is a big elephant that's in the room, and nobody's really talking about it in the way that it really should be talked about. That there's just an inordinate number of white folks who are engaged in this mass killing.
Because if that's the case, all this white on white crime need to stop too, because that gentleman in